Good morning, campers. If you're tuning into the session, then you're here hoping to listen to how Florida Atlantic University gains new insights and transform financial planning across the enterprise, presented by Amy Cavazos, Finance and HR Information Systems at Florida Atlantic University, and Stacy Bell, the Associate Vice President for Finance Planning and Analysis at Florida Atlantic University. If this isn't what you expected, feel free to PM me and I can try to direct you to the right room. Additionally, you will be on mute. You shouldn't be able to unmute yourself. So if you do have questions, please direct them to the chat. And at the end of the session, if there's time, our presenters can answer your questions in a Q&A. And if there's anything they don't get to, we might be able to reach out to you through email. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to our wonderful presenters.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. And welcome to this session where we are going to talk about Prism Analytics and Workday Adaptive Planning. So again, if this isn't the session that you intended, you're certainly welcome to sit in and listen, but you may want to seek the other one. I understand there may be some crossover with another session, so you won't hurt our feelings if you need to leave and go seek that one out instead. So just a general announcement to start off with, all participants will be on mute for the entire presentation, but there is a chat box which will allow you to ask us questions. Based on time, we will try to get to some of the questions at the end of the presentation. I expect we will have some time, but otherwise we will happily respond to those via email to make sure that we get responses to you for your questions. And Stacy, we'll start off with our introductions.
Sure. Hi, my name is Stacy Bell. I'm the Associate Vice President for Finance Planning and Analysis at Florida Atlantic University.
And I am Amy Cavazos, and I am the Assistant Vice President for Finance and Information Systems at Florida Atlantic University. So I was trying to think of some ways that this being Synchronized Swimming Day, that our presentation actually connected in with that theme. And because we are talking about how we synchronize reporting and data across the university, I felt like maybe we could connect with that theme. And I will also tell you that Stacy and I have worked together for over 20 years. So as you can imagine, we are fairly synchronized also. When I think of synchronized swimmers and you get the visual of them and they're like moving in synchronized form, and they even kind of resemble each other. So it's kind of ironic that she and I are presenting to you today under that theme. So I am going to stop my video because I get very animated and theatrical when I start talking, and sometimes I forget I'm on video. So you will see me come back at the end, but we have some great slides for you to follow along with in the meantime. So just a quick glance at Florida Atlantic University. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are located with our main campus in Boca Raton, Florida, and we have 4 satellite campuses. We serve over 30,000 undergraduate and graduate students, and that is with 4,000 full-time faculty and staff. We have 10 colleges, which includes a College of Medicine and a College of Nursing, and we offer over 170 degree programs with over 6,000 undergrad research activities. Our annual operating budget is $882 million. So that may give you some perspective as we talk through some of our university challenges and associated solutions. So a little bit about our Workday Journey. We went live big bang July 2015 with Workday Financial Management, HCM, and Payroll. So we've been live for quite some time, and when we did implement Workday, we went live with all of our employees who had W-2 in calendar 2015. We brought in all of our suppliers with activity in the past 2 years, and all month-end financial balances for a full prior fiscal year. Being the first public university implementing Workday, it was really important for us to make our voice heard with Workday so that they could understand our unique requirements and for us to help influence the product design to support those needs that we had. And we have seen significant improvement in the higher education focused functionality that's been delivered in that time. And We also implemented Workday Prism Analytics in April 2019. I will be taking you through some details of that project and how that has assisted Florida Atlantic University in our reporting objectives. We went live with Adaptive Insights in January of 2020. Stacy will walk you through some highlights of that project and also how that has helped solve some institutional challenges. And we do have our sites on Workday Student. At this time, we do not have a specific implementation timeframe. We are keeping our eye on the functionality, but have a very strong interest in implementing that at some point in the future. So let's take a look into our experiences specific to Workday Prism Analytics. As a higher ed institution, and specifically being a public state university, and even more specifically in the state of Florida, it means that we are continually analyzing and reevaluating the allocation of our budgets across all of our activities. There's a very strong emphasis on detailed and accurate analysis of expenditures as compared to budget, particularly in this current pandemic situation. That has really kind of intensified the need for these reporting and analytics and analysis of the budget. And we always say that we budget to the penny. So the amount and allowable uses of state funding are continually evolving, and it can be difficult to keep up with the requirements, and reporting must be very agile in order to meet the challenging demands for this information. And additionally, as many of you know, federally funded awards requires compliance with strict guidelines for reporting and audit of those allowable expenditures and approvals. As far as operating activity-based reporting, oops, I'm sorry, bear with me. I'm operating two separate mouses here, so bear with me if that happens again. For operating activity-based reporting, we are subject to strict reporting requirements about all of our operating activities to the state. Again, being a state university, and I'm sure a lot of you on this call can relate to this, we have to comply with public records requests, and they can be very, very detailed. They may extend back many years. There's very few limitations on the nature of the data that can be reported, and often it can be very specific and include details all the way down to the transaction level. So as such, we also have stringent historical record retention in order to be able to be responsive to those requests for information. So our specific challenge that we had was, how can we bring data together from across the enterprise? And this is where Prism Analytics offered us a solution that we were excited to share with you today. So if we take a look at life before Prism Analytics, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this specific picture. We had numerous BI tools that were used across the university, and of course each area had their favorite. Most output did ultimately end up as a spreadsheet that was even further manipulated or saved, shared in different versions by different users. So to speak specifically about some of these tools that we were using, WebFocus is a BI tool that was heavily used, particularly within my team. And we use that for report development and also to schedule and deliver reports across the university, and also as a repository and to email reports to users. You'll see on here that we do have a self-built data warehouse. We did start that concurrent with our Workday implementation project. When we implemented, Prism Analytics was not yet available to us. So we saw that there was a need to build this data warehouse so that we could bring all of our historical information off of the banner system into the data warehouse, and also use that for our student information system reporting, which was and still is today in Banner. So we do still use the data warehouse today. We use that for some of our more complicated state reporting and for a lot of our student-related third-party application data. You can see Crystal reports on there. Most of you are familiar with that, and also Power BI. So the big challenge that we had was, all of this data was coming from all of these different sources, and then again landing in Excel, and people would show up with Excel spreadsheets and meetings and claim that it had come from one particular source of data, but it barely even resembled the original report that was produced. So that presented a very significant challenge for us. Talking some more about life before Prism Analytics, there was some good. Each of those reports was highly customizable to each user. When all the different areas had their different favorite BI tools that they were using, they could create very, very specific reports. In fact, that's one of the things that I did for Stacy frequently, was create very, very customized reports that meet her very specific need. We had report developer tool preferences. Everybody had their favorite. You had someone who was really proficient in SQL or very comfortable writing reports in Crystal. They could continue to use that tool, and it didn't require them to learn anything new. And we had an extensive inventory of reports. Over 15 years of having been on our legacy system, as you can imagine, we had a very, very extensive inventory of reports that people were, not very quick to want to abandon. So when we get to the bad, a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory and issues that I know you all can relate to. We had data inconsistency and redundancy. I think we've all been sitting in that meeting where 5 people show up claiming to be presenting the same information. It's wildly different. Bottom line is wildly different, and you spend all of your time trying to reconcile and figure out whose numbers are right and why they're different. That leads to user inefficiency and confusion. Where do I go to find the report that's going to have the right information? We had challenging security and governance, different naming conventions within different BI tools, and different units were using different security to secure their information. How do you come up with kind of a centralized and cohesive security protocol when you're dealing with all these different applications that have different data sets? Increased overhead and maintenance. I like to use the phrase, with great customization comes great maintenance. It's always great to have things, exactly how you want them to be, but the more specific you get, the more customized you get. If you make any slight change in your organization, it's a tremendous amount of maintenance to be able to recover from that. We also had very limited, and in some cases, no real-time link to data. When you ran a report, it was static. When I would, produce a set of information and provide it to Stacy, she did not have the ability from that report to be able to go down into the details and do any further research and investigation. And lastly, countless reconciliations. Again, different reports producing different data, or the same data in different ways, just ends up trying to reconcile to be able to find consistency. So why did we choose Prism Analytics? Well, having gone through that whole list of bad, obviously we were looking for ways to solve those problems. When we first implemented Workday, it appeared to have limitless potential for reporting across the data. And it did create numerous efficiencies and consistency that we were looking for. But over time, we continued to see Workday deliver functionality that brought us even closer to solving our institutional reporting challenges. Composite reporting greatly enhanced our ability to streamline reporting across objects and to draw connections within the data where we were not able to previously. However, our users were still and increasingly demanding a single platform for accessing data with ease of access, and they wanted more consistency and more reliability. So in seeking a single platform solution, Prism offered us that solution. It was one place for transacting, reporting, and all of our self-service activities. So from that, it seemed like a very logical move for us to make to start to progress towards exploration and ultimately implementing Prism. So Prism allows us external data plus Workday data. And for me, this is really the true power of Prism. We have all of our institutional data all within Workday. So it's accessible to users where they're transacting on a daily basis. There's no need to go out and follow other links and try to figure out where it is they need to go to access their information. It's all right there presented to them within Workday. Additionally, we have direct links to real-time data. Now, this is true of all of Workday reporting, but Prism actually kind of extends that because it allows us to have data from other applications that's linked in with real-time Workday data. So keep in mind that Prism data sets are still a snapshot. You do have to bring that data into Workday, into Prism, and it's only as fresh as the last time you brought that data in, but it does again allow you to connect to Workday data, which is live. and drillable, and gives you sort of that real-time access. And lastly, we were able to realize some of that data consistency and reliability, because Prism again provides us with a single source for reports with that drill down capability to be able to verify data. And users are no longer asking us, where do I have to go to find that report? Everything's accessible all right there within Workday. So ultimately for our users, the simplicity of a single source for their reporting data analytics has improved their experience of interacting with data at FAU. This supports our overall objectives with report and data management by focusing our report development on a single, consistent, universally adopted business intelligence solution. And it's completely fully integrated with our ERP, which I think is super cool. So I wanted to share with you some of our live Prism use cases. Going through the list, the very first use case that we had, and in fact, much of this was produced by the end of our 3-day training that we had while implementing Prism. That's how easy it is. And this was where we wanted to take our financial payroll and HCM history from our legacy system and load that into Workday. We wanted our users to no longer have to leave Workday, go log into our legacy system to access that information. We wanted to be able to display it to them right there in Workday again, where they're transacting on a daily basis. The second use case we had was for our eCommerce data and our point of sale details. TouchNet is our payment solution that we use here at the university. And in this particular use case, we were able to bring in data, and I'll go into this in a little bit more detail in one of the future slides, but this has really enhanced our ability to reconcile our e-commerce activities. The third one is my favorite, and this is not yet completely live, although very close to being live for us. COVID did have us make a slight pivot in some of our reporting objectives where we were focused in one direction, and we did have to, as I'm sure all of you did, make some changes to support the changes that the pandemic is presenting to us. But this one is where being able to report 10-year budget to actual reporting. Well, since we went live in 2015, that means we have to report information across 2 ERPs. By using Prism within Workday, we are able to produce budget to actuals across 10 years and have that all integrated, and I have a slide that I can share with you on that as well. We have a procurement dashboard, which is primarily Workday data, but because of Prism, we are able to integrate third-party application information as well. Our banner student information. So this is another exciting development that we've recently been able to go live with, and that is being able to bring over a significant amount of our student financial data into Workday, which will allow us to reconcile to our Workday financial information. Very exciting. If you could see Stacey's video, you would see her cheering, because this is very exciting for us. And lastly, a trended position snapshot data source. So many of you may know that Workday does deliver a trended worker data source. And what we found, that being a higher ed institution, our workers in many cases have multiple positions. So reporting information at the worker level is not always sufficient for us. It's very important that we're able to go to the position level. So this has allowed us to do that. We actually did model this after the delivered Workday trended worker data source, but we take it to the position level. And we've included in there our own definition of what is an active employee. Again, common issue across higher ed. You don't always terminate your student employees or your adjuncts because you know they're coming back and maybe they're just not here for one semester. So it's a common challenge that I know a lot of us have, not just with Workday, but with all of our ERP systems, is what do we do with those individuals? We don't want to terminate them and go through a lengthy rehire process. So all of that to say, we're able to use a series of flags and Boolean conditions to try to determine at any point in time what really is our active population of employees. So I'd like to take you into a couple details of some of these use cases and share them with you. The first one is TouchNet. So this is our e-commerce activity, and I tried to highlight here where each of the different sources of the data are, and as you can see, this is actually coming from 3 distinct applications. We are incorporating one report, data that's coming from TouchNet, data that's coming from Banner, and data that's coming from Workday. So we are still leveraging the integration with TouchNet and Banner to be able to nicely package that financial data to post to the Workday ledger. Ideally, we will be able to move in the future to a direct integration between TouchNet and Workday. So at this time where we have 3 separate distinct sources of data, as you can imagine, reconciliation is very complicated. Our users are trying to match up information from those 3 systems in order to reconcile their revenues. And now, as you can see, by using Prism, we deliver to them one single report, which makes reconciliation very seamless, very straightforward for them. This is a big win for the university. Secondly, I wanted to share with you that use case where we are able to link together Banner and Workday financial data. And what this allows us to do, as you can see here, year 1, year 2, we can span across the years where our financials were in Banner versus when our financials are in Workday. And we've done that by leveraging a crosswalk that we built. The crosswalk takes all of the Banner financial data elements and mirrors them to the Workday financial data elements. So when a user comes in here to search or to filter, they can do that either using the old Banner codes. For those of you who are familiar with Banner, you're going to recognize index, as opposed to the Workday financial codes, whether that be cost center or fund. And it basically allows them to interact with this information across both ERP systems. So I'm sure you can hear my enthusiasm coming through. This is so cool to me. Something that I'm really excited to be able to deliver these reports and put them in the hands of our financial executives. And lastly, I wanted to show you this procurement dashboard. Here we have 2 distinct sources of data, one of those being Workday and the other one being Jagger. Jagger is what we use to collect information from prospective suppliers through our invitations to negotiate process. So rather than trying to find a way to load all that data into Workday, which was what we first attempted, we realized, why would we create all these supplier records when we may not even end up doing business with these individuals? Why don't we rather just make a report out of that source of data and be able to display it side by side with the other Workday procurement analytics? So this is a dashboard that's currently live and heavily used by our procure to pay department. So the last slide that I want to share with you, the last example, is a future use case plan. I mentioned to you that just recently we were successful in bringing in our student financial data from Banner into Workday, which is a huge accomplishment for us, something we're very excited to do. And what it's going to be able to allow us is to produce something very similar to this pro forma here. So this is an example of how we would like to be able to analyze profitability by unit, whether that be college, whether that be a specific program within a college. The goal is to be able to bring in all of our course level detail to support our revenues, and then compare that to our other expenses, which can then be allocated out to the individual units as well. So the goal here is to have a comprehensive profitability analysis that we can use to evaluate each one of our colleges and programs, find which ones are performing, and to be able to do that type of analysis, which we really have not been able to be successful doing in the past. And Prism is going to be the solution for us to be able to perform that type of analysis. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy.
Thank you, Amy. You can go to the next slide. Workday Adaptive Planning is an enterprise application that helps us to make better decisions and make them faster. The application provides the ability to pull data from Workday, apply some calculations and assumptions to the data, and to make informed decisions. You can easily model scenarios in real time to respond to changing climate. The higher education outlook continues to experience change, especially now with COVID. Rising tuition costs, new federal accountability mandates, and declining enrollments put increased scrutiny on universities' financial statements. Coupled with this increased oversight, higher education institutions are expected to operate at peak efficiency and provide differentiated student services, all while operating costs and revenue streams fluctuate. To address these challenges and to stay competitive, colleges and universities must change the way they're planning. It needs to be quicker, more flexible, and have the ability to change as the world changes. FAU needed a product that has the capability to model a number of different scenarios, analyze the results of data, and report those results to management and monitor the performance against that data. That's where Workday Adaptive Planning comes in. Next. So prior to Workday, FAU, as many of your universities, we used Excel to coordinate and generate our annual budget process. It was extremely tedious process to send out spreadsheets and then consolidate all of them. As they were returned, formulas were changed, lines were inserted, and data was missing. We implemented Tidemark in January of 2016. The product was a step in the right direction, but it was missing the ease of maintaining the application on our own. We needed the vendor to help us move from year to year. Workday came out with Workday Planning, and we decided to take baby steps and implement that for our annual budget for our direct support organizations. The product had a number of flaws, formulas changed unexpectedly, and it wasn't as user-friendly. We were so excited to hear about the announcement of the purchase of Workday Adaptive Planning. Next slide. With the announcement of Workday Adaptive Insights, the university was excited at the opportunity to implement a product that was user-friendly, had the ability to integrate with Workday, have a workflow process of approvals. It delivered reports, dashboards, analytics, with Excel-like end user interface and real-time integration into Workday. The product has reporting analytic capabilities and a single sign-on experience. So the users just needed to log into one product into Workday, and there was a worklet with Adaptive's picture, and it would take them right to the product. So they thought they were in Workday. FAU went live January of 2020 with Adaptive Planning. Our phase one was the university's annual operating budget for fiscal year 21. We were able to roll out the budget, provide training, and integrate it back into Workday for our July 1 fiscal year, just a couple weeks ago. Next slide. Before Workday Planning, we had to run reports in multiple systems and then enter the information into spreadsheets. Now with Adaptive Planning, we're able to bring all that information into one system and in real time. There's no versioning of spreadsheets. We're able to create our board presentation along with our annual budget book that's published on our website. It saved us a lot of time. Next slide. FAU was able to bring in year-to-date actuals and prior year budgets. The users entered their estimates of the current fiscal year. They entered their budgets for the next fiscal year, and all the reviews and approvals were done in Adaptive using a workflow. Reports, board presentations, and the budget book was able to be created. Then the next year's budgets were loaded back into Workday, ready for use on July 1. Next slide. This year, we're able to streamline the operating budget process. But going forward, we're planning to use Adaptive to do forecasting of student fees. Using Prism to bring in the non-Workday credit hour data and combined with Workday revenue data, we can push it into Adaptive and forecast by term, level of tuition, revenues for the year. We're able to create scenarios using variables for undergrad and graduate and in-state and out-of-state credit hours along with waivers. These forecasts can then be pushed back into Workday, into a dashboard for management to review. Next slide. Workday's Adaptive Planning gives FAU the ability to collaborate with colleges and departments across the university so we can align student data with financial data to support proactive planning. We shorten the budget cycle, and we can free up my team's finance, budget, and planning to focus on more strategic activities and financial projections. So I will see if there's any questions. I think we have time for a few questions.
If anyone has, this is Sherry from Workday. Thank you so much, Amy and Stacy, fantastic presentation. If anyone has any questions that you haven't typed into the chat or that you would want them to address here, just type away. One question from Mark. So what are your end users saying about Prism and planning? at FAU?
Well, I can start talking about Prism. The great thing about it is that it's very seamless to them. To them, they are going into Workday and they are running a report just like they would run any other report. So it's very, very transparent to them that they're even using another tool that isn't the same as the Workday report writer. And I know that they are very excited about some of the solutions that we are delivering as a result of Prism. So specifically, the one that has impacted the most end users is related to the TouchNet data and being able to reconcile our e-commerce activities to their Workday revenues. So at least as far as that is concerned, I can tell you it's very transparent to them, but I'll let Stacey address the planning piece.
So for planning, the users loved it because it had an Excel-like end product looking. It looked like they were just entering data into Excel. They were able to roll up their whole college department and actually look at reports from the college level, which they couldn't do in Excel before. So from that perspective, they liked it. They liked the workflow, so they can track in their own colleges who has submitted their budgets and in what stage their budgets were in.
And then one follow-up question, are you using those reports with the board as well? So, and if so, what's their impression?
Well, for the board reporting, we produced just a PowerPoint presentation out of it, and it was seamless to the board. They didn't notice any different because all they saw was the end result. But for us, it saved us from dumping the data into another product to then create the presentation.
Again, Amy and Stacey, thank you so much.